Elias Cade shoved through the wall of bodies, one arm locked around his daughter's waist, the other forcing open a path toward the boarding ramp. The air inside the evacuation terminal was thick with panic. Children crying, alarms wailing, the thunder of security drones herding people toward the last transport ship. A single officer's voice cut through the chaos. One seat left. He didn't think. He ran. Lena clung to his neck, her small fingers digging into his jacket as he pushed past a cluster of civilians arguing with a guard. Ahead, the ramp was already retracting. An aide in expensive robes stepped in front of him, flashing a clearance badge. The officer moved to let the man through. Elias didn't stop. He barreled forward, knocking the aide sideways, and reached the hatch just as the hydraulic doors began to seal. The officer's visor tilted toward him. Manifest shows one seat. The voice came through the helmet speaker. Elias looked down at Lena's wide, terrified eyes and made a decision that tasted like steel in his mouth. He set her inside the seat, buckled the straps, and stepped back. "She goes," he said. "I'll wait for the next one." The officer hesitated. The aide yelled from behind, voice shrill and full of outrage. The sound of distant concussive impacts, enemy fire hitting the city's outer shields, made the officer flinch. "Get in," the guard growled. He shoved Elias into the seat beside Lena and slapped the control to seal the hatch. The sudden silence inside the transport felt wrong. No panic chatter, no crying, just a low hum. The seats were arranged in a narrow compartment, all facing a curved bulkhead etched with a symbol Elias didn't recognize. 3 interlocking rings formed around a silver flame. Passengers avoided looking at it, their eyes downcast. A ripple of unease ran through the cabin as the symbol glowed to life. Light bled into the air, forming a shimmering figure, tall, robed in black and silver, her head adorned with a crown that looked forged from starlight. Her eyes were molten silver pools that seemed to burn through the projection itself. Elias didn't know who she was, but everyone else seemed to. People shrank back in their seats, some lowering their heads entirely. The hologram's gaze drifted over the passengers, pausing briefly on each face, until it stopped, locked on him. She tilted her head slightly, as if adjusting her perspective. "Human," she said, her voice melodic, yet carrying a weight that made the air feel heavier. "Elias Cade." He blinked. "You know my name?" Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. She turned her head slightly, speaking to someone off-screen. "That one. Bring him here." Murmurs broke out in the cabin. The man sitting across from Elias recoiled, pressing himself against the seat as if physical distance could keep him from association. The transport's artificial voice cut in. "Passenger Cade, you have been requested by Empress Saravine Zithra. Compliance is mandatory." Empress Zithra. The name meant nothing to him, but it had the weight of something everyone else already feared. Lena's hand found his. "Daddy, why does she want you?" He didn't answer because he didn't know. He wasn't anyone important, just a man trying to get his daughter off a dying world. The ship jerked, and through the small viewport, the fleeing stream of evacuation transports began to drift away. They were heading in the wrong direction. A new course flashed on the status screen. Vector override, Zithron command vessel. Passengers exchanged nervous glances. One woman whispered, "No one comes back from summons." Elias gritted his teeth. "I'm not going anywhere without my daughter." The AI's voice was flat. "Secondary passenger Lena Cade will remain under Zithron protection." That's not good enough. A pause, as if the system was receiving instructions from somewhere far above its rank. Then, confirmed. Both passengers will be transferred. Through the viewport, space shifted as their trajectory bent towards something massive. The first thing he saw was light, too much of it, spilling from structure so large it made the evacuation planet look like a moon. Then the shape resolved, a fortress of metal and crystal, bristling with armaments and haloed by rotating rings the size of cities. The cabin went silent. No one had to be told what it was. The Zithron flagship. Lena pressed herself against him, whispering so only he could hear. "Is that her ship?" "Yes," he said, though the word felt inadequate. Somewhere deep in that impossible vessel, the Empress sat on a throne of black alloy, eyes fixed on a hovering data feed. The image of Elias, holding his daughter, flickered before her. Her fingers drummed against the armrest. After all these years, a human who remembers. Elias didn't hear those words. All he felt was the weight of the ship's pull as the flagship loomed larger, blotting out the stars. The override clamps latched onto their transport with a shuddering thud. The lights in the cabin shifted from human warm to alien cold, a blue-white glow that made everyone's skin look pale. A hiss of atmosphere change whispered through the vents. No one spoke. The aide Elias had shoved aside earlier sat rigid, avoiding his eyes entirely. The officer who'd let them aboard didn't look back at him, either. The floor vibrated with the deep bass hum of the flagship's power core. Then the inner hatch slid open, revealing two towering figures clad in crystalline armor that refracted the cold light into shifting rainbows. Their movements were precise, synchronized, their faces hidden behind featureless masks. One stepped forward, voice resonating unnaturally in the chamber. "Elias Cade. Lena Cade, you will come with us." Elias's instinct screamed against it. "She stays with me." There was no hesitation in the reply. "By the Empress's order, she remains with you." That stopped him. It didn't make sense. If they wanted to intimidate him, separating them would have been the first move. Instead, they seemed almost careful. As they stepped onto the connecting platform between the transport and the flagship, the sheer scale of the alien vessel became impossible to ignore. The walls pulsed faintly, like veins carrying light instead of blood. The air was warmer, scented faintly with something metallic yet sweet, and gravity felt just slightly heavier, as though reminding visitors they were not in control here. The guards moved without wasted motion, leading them through corridors lined with other soldiers who didn't glance at them. Elias kept his shoulders squared, but his grip on Lena's hand was unshakable. When they reached the final set of doors, the guards paused. The panels parted without a sound, revealing an expanse so vast it made the transport feel like a toy. A vaulted chamber stretched upward into shifting patterns of nebula colors, as though the ceiling were a living sky. At the far end, high on an obsidian platform, the Empress waited. Her eyes caught his instantly, and though she was still meters away, he felt the weight of that gaze. Curious, calculating, and something else he couldn't name. She rose, the motion fluid, her presence filling the chamber without a single step taken. "Elias Cade," she said again, as though tasting the name. He met her stare, refusing to look away. "You've gone to a lot of trouble to meet a man you've never seen before." Her lips curved slightly. "Never seen." Her voice carried, rich and unhurried. "Perhaps, but never known. That is another matter entirely." Lena's small fingers squeezed his. Elias kept his focus on the alien ruler, every muscle in his body tight. Whatever game she was playing, he knew one thing. This was no chance encounter. She'd chosen him for a reason, and until he learned why, neither of them would sleep easy. The alien guards flanked them as they moved deeper into the flagship, the echo of their armored steps resonating through the massive corridors. Every wall glimmered faintly, etched with patterns that shifted when Elias tried to focus on them, as though the very metal was alive. He kept Lena close, her small hand gripping as like a lifeline. The further they walked, the more he realized the ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a city, a palace, and a fortress rolled into one. They stopped before a towering archway that opened into a chamber unlike anything Elias had seen. The air felt thicker, heavier, as if each breath carried weight. The floor rippled with soft light under their steps, and at the center stood the Empress herself, no longer a projection. She was taller than he expected, her presence a deliberate balance of elegance and command. Her crown shimmered with inner light, casting shifting patterns across her silver eyes. The guard stepped back. The Empress's gaze swept over Elias and Lena, lingering on the girl for a fraction of a second before settling on him. "You refuse to kneel," she said. "Not a question, but an observation." "I'm not one of your subjects," Elias replied evenly. A ripple of sound passed through the small group of attendants scattered at the edges of the chamber. The Empress didn't react. Instead, she descended the obsidian steps toward him, her robes whispering across the luminous floor. "Many refuse," she said softly. "Fewer remain, standing afterward." "I'm here because you ordered it," he said, his voice calm but edged. "Not because I came willingly." She studied him for a long moment, then gestured with a single hand. "Walk with me." The walls shifted to reveal a side passage, one that curved upward in a gentle spiral. As they walked, she spoke without looking at him. "Your species intrigues me. Most civilizations collapse under the pressure of a single planetary crisis. Humanity survives them, then makes more for itself. You are stubborn to the point of irrationality. Or maybe we just don't like being told when we're finished," Elias said. A faint smile ghosted across her lips. "Yes, I have read the military files from your world. Your name was in one of them. The survivor of Res." Elias's jaw tightened. "That's not a name I use." "But you earned it," she replied. "A planet fell, yet you lived. Not because of luck, but because you adapted. I value those who adapt." They emerged into another chamber, smaller but more intense. The walls here were smooth, black, and pulsing with faint threads of light. At the center floated a circular platform surrounded by energy streams that swirled like liquid glass. The Empress gestured toward it. "Step inside." Elias didn't move. "What is it?" "A trial of resonance," she said. "It measures the strength of thought, the stability of will. It cannot be cheated." He looked at Lena. "She stays here. She will not be touched," the Empress said. The certainty in her tone didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like a command to the universe itself. He stepped onto the platform. At once, the energy streams shifted, forming jagged arcs of light that crackled around him. His thoughts filled with noise, flashes of memories, voices from his past, moments of loss and fear. The air pressed against him like an ocean current. Most would crumble quickly. He didn't. He planted his feet and breathed through it, forcing each intrusive image aside, focusing on one constant: Lena's face. Minutes passed. The arcs smoothed into a steady glow. The Empress's attendants exchanged glances. No one spoke until the energy faded and the platform dimmed. He stepped down. The Empress regarded him with a new kind of interest. "You held," she said. "You didn't tell me what happens if I failed," Elias said. "You did not need to know." They stood in silence for a moment, the faint hum of the ship filling the space between them. Then she dismissed the attendants with a wave, leaving only the guards outside the chamber. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something more personal. "You think I summoned you out of curiosity? That is only partly true. The galaxy is changing, Elias. There is a storm coming, one that will scour worlds clean of life." "I've heard warnings before," he said. "They usually come with a demand for loyalty." "This is different," she said. "The Vorai swarm is not an empire. It does not negotiate, does not enslave. It consumes. We have fought them for centuries and lost more than we have won. Your world will be nothing but ash if they reach it." He studied her face, searching for the lie. "And you think I can help you stop them?" "I think," she said slowly, "that humanity's chaos is the one thing they have never learned to counter. You have patterns no one can predict, strategies no machine can model. I want you at my side, not as a soldier, but as an advisor." "I told you. I'm just a father now," Elias said. Her silver eyes softened, but only slightly. "Then you understand what must be protected. That is why I chose you." He didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure whether her words were truth or manipulation. But one thing was certain: whatever game she was playing, he and Lena were now in the middle of it. And walking away wasn't an option. The War Council chamber was a dome of shifting light, its walls alive with projections of distant star systems, fleets in motion, and the outlines of creatures that didn't look like anything Elias had seen before. The Empress stood at the center, surrounded by Zitharon generals in gleaming armor. They bowed slightly as she entered, but their eyes narrowed at Elias when he followed. Lena stayed close to him, her gaze darting between the alien faces. With a gesture, the Empress brought a new image into view. A mass of interlocking shapes, ships, but grown rather than built, twisted through space. The movement was wrong, unnerving, like watching a swarm of insects shift as one mind. "The Vorai swarm," she said. "They do not conquer. They consume. Entire biospheres vanish within days." Elias watched the swarm pulse outward in the projection, tendrils of ships reaching for the next star. "They're not sending an army," he said. "They're sending a tide." A general to her right spoke sharply. "Human metaphors do not help. We require precise strategy, not poetry." Elias turned his head toward him. You've been fighting them for centuries and still haven't stopped them. Maybe precise strategy is exactly the problem. The general stiffened. Another spoke, voice colder. Primitive thinking has no place in this hall. The Empress raised a hand, silencing them. Let him speak. Elias stepped toward the projection, circling it slowly. You fight them the same way every time. Meet them head-on with your biggest ships and most advanced weapons. You said yourself you've lost more than you've won. That means they've adapted to your best moves. He tapped the edge of the hologram, enlarging the swarm's leading tendril. If you can't beat them with your best, you beat them with something they've never trained against. What do you propose? The Empress asked. Low-tech chaos, Elias said. Traps, feints, sabotage. Things so random their hive mind can't account for them. Force them to overextend, then cut them off. The generals shifted uncomfortably. One muttered, You'd risk our fleets on chance? No, Elias said. I'd use your fleets to make them think they've won. Then I'd bleed them dry with what they can't see coming. The Empress studied him in silence, then looked to her council. You doubt him because he is human, but his species thrives where logic says they should not. The Vorai will not expect his methods. Her words did not erase the skepticism in the room. A tall figure with a crimson crest stepped forward. If this human's tactics are worth considering, let him prove them. We will run a live exercise. He will command a joint strike team. If he fails, he dies. Lena's hand tightened in his. Elias looked to the Empress. And if I win? Her silver eyes glinted. Then they will follow you into war. The training field was an artificial war zone, suspended in the flagship's gravity ring. Zitharon and human ships were simulated in real time, with crews controlling them as if in battle. Elias was given a mismatched assortment of vessels, some fast but fragile, others slow and underpowered. His opponent, the crimson-crested rival, commanded a perfect, balanced fleet. From a first moment, Elias refused to play by the exercise's rules. He split his forces into erratic formations, scattering ships into asteroid fields and abandoning areas without explanation. The opposing fleet pressed forward confidently, certain of victory. Then Elias triggered the traps. Mines hidden in drifting debris, fighters concealed behind asteroids, ships feigning damage to draw enemies in close. The simulated enemy fleet began to falter, its perfect formation breaking as it tried to react to attacks from impossible angles. Within minutes, the balanced fleet was in retreat. When the final explosion faded from the projection, the training field went silent. The crimson-crested rival stood rigid, jaw tight. The Empress broke the silence first. Unexpected and effective. Elias shrugged. Predictable enemies are easy. The Vorai aren't predictable, but they're not creative. That's where you beat them. A murmur rippled through the council. The Empress's faint smile returned. Humans, always rewriting the rules. Before the mood could settle, a sharp alarm filled the chamber. The projection shifted to show the swarm again, larger now, moving faster. A data feed scrolled across the bottom. Time to contact, 6 days. The Empress looked at him. You have that long to prepare us, human. Elias glanced at Lena, then back at her. Then we'd better get to work. The next 6 days were a blur of relentless motion. Elias barely slept, existing in a cycle of planning, testing, and revising. The Empress had given him full access to her fleets, though the Zitharon commanders still bristled at every order he gave. It didn't matter. He wasn't here to make them like him. He was here to keep Lena alive. He scattered patrols across the outer systems, not to hold territory, but to bait the Vorai into revealing their approach vectors. Civilian ships were moved out of the swarm's path in seemingly random waves, masking the true evacuation routes. Salvage teams stripped derelict stations, turning them into drifting minefields. Anything that could explode was armed and hidden. Lena stayed on the command deck most of the time, tucked into a quiet corner where she could watch the stars from the viewport. She didn't speak much, but every time Elias passed, her eyes tracked him, making sure he was still there. It kept him moving. On the 6th day, the swarm arrived. Space itself seemed to boil as the living ships poured into the system, a tide of chitin and bioluminescence that dwarfed anything human or Zitharon fleets could match in number. Their movement was hypnotic, shifting as one, folding and unfurling like a colossal organism. The Zithron admirals wanted to strike immediately. Elias said no. Let them push in, he told the Empress. The further they come, the more they'll have to defend their own lines. For hours, the swarm advanced unopposed, exactly as planned. Then Elias gave the signal. The minefields bloomed to life, detonating in blinding waves. Vorai ships shredded apart, their fragments spinning into the path of those behind them, sowing chaos in the tight formations. The enemy tried to regroup. That was when the hidden squadrons emerged from asteroid shadows, striking at the swarm's flanks and vanishing before they could be trapped. Elias's forces never fought where the swarm expected. Every move came from an angle they hadn't calculated for. The battle became a dance of confusion. The swarm's numerical advantage meant nothing when it couldn't predict the next blow. At one point, Elias ordered 3 capital ships to feign catastrophic damage and drift directly into the enemy's core, just long enough for the Zithron heavy guns to fire through them and tear open the swarm's central node. Hours later, the tide broke. The Vorai didn't retreat. They couldn't. They simply scattered. The hive coordination shattered. Individual ships thrashing in panic before the surviving fleets finished them. The silence that followed felt unreal. The Zithron command deck was frozen in a kind of stunned awe. Even the most skeptical generals stood without words. The Empress's silver eyes found him across the room. "You have done what centuries of war could not," she said. Elias shook his head. "We bought time. That's all. They'll be back. Then they will find us ready," she replied. Later, after the fleets dispersed and the dead were honored, the Empress summoned him privately. The chamber was quiet, the walls dimmed to soft blue. Lena sat nearby, curled under a thermal wrap. "You could leave now," the Empress said. "Take your daughter to any world in my domain. Live in peace." Elias studied her. "And if I stay, then you will have a place here, not as a subject, but as an ally. Humanity will have a seat at my war council." He looked at Lena. She met his gaze, a silent question in her eyes. He thought of the swarm, of the tide that would one day return, and of the worlds that wouldn't survive without someone willing to play the unpredictable card. He turned back to the Empress. "Then I stay." Her faint smile returned, not triumphant, but approving. "So it is decided." The stars beyond the viewport burned cold and distant, but Elias felt the weight of them differently now. He was no longer just a survivor, no longer just a father protecting one child. The galaxy had changed, and so had he. When the next storm came, he'd be ready.